Hello everybody and welcome to my new video on Xin Zhao. I'm going to go over 5 tips that I think can really help you, particularly for people from bronze to gold, to help you climb with this great champion in the current meta. He's extremely easy to execute, and I really recommend any player that is struggling to find a solid blind pickable champion in the jungle that's going to be easy to execute and great to climb with. Xin Zhao is your man. If this is your first video that you have seen on my channel, my name is LolFit. I do educational content. I do tips videos, guide videos, and also stream every night at 6:30 PST if you are interested in that kind of stuff. So without a further ado, let's jump right into Xin Zhao. Now, the reason we pick Xin Zhao here, the reason why I want, this is going to be kind of my first tip. You need to know how to play him. He is a great duelist, and you should be taking advantage of his early game power. This is when he really thrives. Think of him as a bit like Xin, but in my opinion, he scales quite a bit better. So what we want to do, what we want to try to emphasize with every single other part of our kit, is we want to be able to snowball the early game, get off ganks, have a really good and fast clear speed, and you're going to be relatively healthy with your passive. So this is why I recommend Xin Zhao to you. This is the champion. Stop playing Xin if you're in low elo. Stop playing those hard to execute junglers. Stop playing Talia and try out Xin Zhao. I think you're going to find a lot of success with him. And yeah, that will wrap up the first tip. And as always with these videos, guys, if you have any recommendations, if you have any tips of your own, or if you have any feedback or critique, I'd love to hear your comments down in the comments below. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, I want to talk about the 2 different rune sets that you can use on Xin Zhao. Both serve a very particular service, and they both are going to be used in different situations, so you should be really looking at what the enemy team comp is before deciding what your runes are. First up, the most meta one, I think the one that if you're not really sure what to do, this is the one you should focus on. We're going phase rush because you are going to be able to chase people down, and with his great dueling potential, you're going to have a lot of people just running away from you. You have a lot of damage already, so you just want a little bit more catch potential. Next up, in the next row, if you have a lot of enemy AP, obviously Nullifying Orb is going to be good, or you can go Nimbus if they don't really have any AP, or even I don't really recommend Manifold Blade on him, but yeah, you can choose from those 2. Next up, Celerity and Water Walking. This combo is great because it's going to even amplify your ability to skirmish over those early scuttlers even more with that early game AD that these 2 provide you. And then also with the precision tree, going to increase your attack speed a bit and give you a little bit more damage. The reason why these 2 are very important is because your passive is going to do more damage every 3rd hit, and then also the quicker you can get your Qs out, the more cooldown reduction, and the quicker you get your knockup. So this should be your go-to rune page, and this should be used against enemy junglers that are going to be trying to run away from you and kite you, or that you generally win in a 1v1. These junglers, a big one that would stand out in my mind would be something like Kindred that is looking to kite you out. Phase Rush is going to be a very effective rune into that. Next up, we have the dueling. Now this is a little bit less common, but is still going to be great in situations where you're not going to be able to, if you're not the best at utilizing Phase Rush, and in situations where there's a jungler that's just looking to attack you and going to try and outduel you. Something like Xin comes to mind. This is a great way. Also, if you're against a bunch of tanks and you don't really need to run around too much, you're just going to be kind of bashing your heads against each other, Press the Attack is going to be great because it's going to amplify the damage on the tank, and it's just going to be an overall more damage in your all-in. So this is the rune set you want to do when people, you know that the jungler is going to try and take the fight to you, and then also the other rune set is when they're trying to run away from you. So keep this in mind when you are looking at the enemy champions. And then obviously Triumph is going to be great because a lot of the times you're able to get away with your ult, and when people are going down, you're going to get the Triumph proc and you can look to go back in. Obviously more attack speed, and then also you can look at Legend Tenacity. If they have just a crap ton of CC, you can look into that. And then next up, obviously Ravenous Hunter can be pretty good. And then also, if you want a little bit more movement speed, you can go the Relentless Hunter. And then obviously Sudden Impact is going to be good as well because it's going to amplify the damage you do after you do your E-dash. So always look to kind of modify and put yourself in the best place before the game even starts. Just try and min-max on what you're trying to do in the game. That will wrap up number 2. If you guys have any tips that you'd like to share with the current builds that you're seeing, I'd love to hear them. I know these are just the two really meta horror type of builds, so if you have something crazy that you like doing, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Alright, and jumping into number 3, I want to go over your build path, because this is extremely important when you're playing a Feast Famine champion like Xin Zhao that is relying on his early game dueling to have a little bit of relevance in the late game. Now, when you are doing very well, obviously with Xin Zhao, he is most likely going to be playing a jungler, so the most common item and the most meta item you want to take first is your enchantment warrior with skirmishers, just to give you the maximum amount of dueling potential. But the key part of this tip is what item you are going second. If you are snowballing, if you're doing well, if you have access to all of your jungle camps and you are not getting counter jungled, Trinity Force is a great pickup. It's going to amplify that mid-game power spike and really allow you to shut out games if you are ahead. If you are not doing well, if you're just maybe just going even, or if you're a bit behind, Black Cleaver is going to be a little bit tankier and it's going to be a little bit better. It's going to give you that 20% cooldown reduction, which is really important with Xin Zhao, and it's just going to make you a little bit more of a frontliner and less of just a carry. So keep in mind, build for the game state. Some other really great items that I want to mention real quickly are Sterix Gauge is going to be great. It's going to give you a little bit more burst protection that is so prevalent in the current meta, and there's a bunch of other items that you can go, but it should just be really dependent on what the enemy team is. If you are just diving in and consistently trading 1-for-1 on one of their carries, you might want to look at something like Guardian Angel. If your team needs a frontline after those two items, that you should just look into straight tank stats, like something like Randoms if they have crit users, or if they have a lot of recurring AP damage like Karthus, Malzahar Brand. Adaptive Helm is going to be great, so look to build for the current game state. But if you take one thing out of my video, do not be that jungler that goes warrior into Triforce with Moby boots when they're behind, because you are not going to ever be at a point where you're going to get back into the game. It's way too expensive of an item when you are behind, and the enemy team is going to be able to close out the game before you hit any true power spikes. So when behind, build defensive, just get a little bit of damage and tankiness with Black Cleaver or with Sterix. Stay away from the very snowbally item like Trinity Force, and your team will really appreciate that. Everyone knows that feeling of the 08 Lee Sin, Warrior, Youmuu's, Moby boost. Don't be like that person that everyone hates. If you have any particular questions about how to build, let me know in the comments down below. I'll help you out with that. And if you, obviously this is really catered towards jungler players. If you are one of the few that take Xin Zhao mid or top, I've actually played quite a bit of that, so you can hit me up with those kind of questions as well. And that will wrap up how to build on Xin Zhao. Alright, and getting into the next tip, it is just a simple thing that all junglers need to know, but what so many low elo junglers fail to do. I know if this is a little bit basic, I'm sorry, but I think a lot of people will get something out of this when they're bronze and silver. When you are ganking a lane and you see an enemy right here, or even maybe an enemy a little bit deeper in the lane right here, the last thing you want to do is come up and then E on them to close the gap there, and then try and kill them, because they're going to use their mobility spell after your E dash. So what we want to do is just run at them and take a good angle and just run up and auto, and when they use their mobility, you use your E to follow, and then you can also use your flash if you're looking to finish them off. So always look to use your gap closer after they've used their mobility spell. This is going to just really increase your gank potential. And then obviously you auto walk with them, auto walk with them, auto. This is just a really basic thing, but I think a lot of people in low elo should practice this if you are not doing it effectively yet. Keep this in mind. Please implement this. I know I said this before, but if you take two things away from this video, just make sure you're saving your E. If you're able to get to them without your E, don't use your E. That's the basic general rule I want to just to get out. All right, and that will wrap up tip number 4. All right, and For the final tip, I am just going to go over every single ability and some things that you should know about them. I know this is a little bit basic, but I really just want to hammer home your fundamentals in this, because this is the champion I recommend to anyone that comes into my streams or on my videos and they say, hey, I'm looking for a jungler to play in low elos, so I'm going to make this as basic as possible. Every third attack on your passive is going to be really important, because it's going to give you an increased amount of damage and it's going to give you a bit more healing and sustain. So keep this in mind when you're playing him. Next up, we have his Talon Strike. So the important thing you need to take away from this, first up, is on your third attack, you are going to get a knockup. So this is going to provide you a bit of CC. Obviously, what you're seeing, sometime if you're able to get the second one off and then someone uses your flash, always look to flash after if you're able to get the kill with a knockup in your CC. But you are able to reduce the cooldown of your other abilities with this Q. So how we want to use it is you want to use your other abilities first, and then use your Q, because this will reduce the cooldown on the others. We'll get a better kind of example of it right here. We'll turn off the auto cooldown, refresh real quick, and then we're going to use the E and then the W and then the Q. So you want to just make sure you're getting the maximum amount of cooldown reduction on your other abilities with your Q. It's very important to maximize your damage. And then also Q is going to be an auto attack cancel. So how it works is you just, right after an auto, you just Q again. It's going to give you a really quick double attack. So that will wrap up your Q. Second, W. Do not neglect the damage of this W in the front. It is a little bit more than even a basic attack, so you can always look to auto. You want to do it right after you finish an auto, and then make sure you're getting the W damage, and then obviously the thrust damage is where most of it comes from, but do not forget about the slash damage at the start. If you're able to get it in, get it in. Next up, we have our E. We covered a little bit of its gap closing potential in the earlier tip, but what it also provides is a slow, so keep that in mind. And then it also will give you a bit more attack speed, so this is where a lot of your dueling potential is going to come from, so keep that in mind when you are looking to fight and min-max damage against your enemy. Lastly, we have his ultimate. So a lot of the time when we see percentage health damage, everyone is thinking, oh, it's percentage max health damage. So this is actually a current health. So how we want to use this is, first up, there's two ways to use it. If you are in a straight up 1v1, you want to just use it right away, because this will give you the maximum amount of damage. But when you are fighting in team fights, this is an amazing amount of defensive ability, because no one is able to damage you if they are outside of the circle. So consider the circumstance before you use the ability. It's not a huge nuke, but it is a great amount of damage if you're using it on someone at a high target. It's just a melee champion that's going to be inside the circle as well. Always used to just look to use it at the maximum amount of damage. That will wrap up my last tip. Guys, thank you so much for all the support you've been showing me. I can't believe we reached 2,000 subscribers. If you enjoyed the content, please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, if you have any questions for me, you can join the Discord down below. If you want to have a live chat, you can add me in game. If you want to play some games with me on Flex, do that pretty much every single stream. And yeah, you guys take it easy and have a great day.